Hi folks, and welcome back to the EQ Academy. I thought I'm going to leave you a day alone, but I just can't. I had last night a beautiful conversation with one of our German doctors who is part of the second edition of Cancer is Curable Now. And we came to talk about a general problem in this industry, and I thought I'd share it with you. I asked him whether he's willing to share it, and he said, Marcus, I can't do that. This is really a problem because we need to be the rescuers. We can't criticize and challenge clients, and I disagree with him, but I thought if he can't, well, I can. And I'm going to share with you what we talked about, and you see that behind me on that screen. Now, the main issue is that everything, when you're diagnosed with cancer, has a starting place, and that's usually the first discomfort. We have some kind of arthritis, we have some kind of problems, inflammations, some kind of leaky gut, and through that inflammations, allergies, reactions, bloating, diarrhea, pains, aches. There is always something that is out of balance. Brain fog, concentration problems, many things that go way longer before you actually had the diagnosis. And that's where we ignore the fact, well, that's how life is. And we actually get used to pain. And I can say that out of my own experience. You get used to discomfort, to living in pain, to not being able to move. And we think that's normal. It's some kind of slipped our consciousness that this would be already the place to start and to change. And if we don't grow up in an environment with parents that actually help us to get going and to change those things, well, then we just get into the treadmill of accepting that state. And then we have the first warning signs, first diagnosis, big problem. Heart attack for me was a big one. Well, and then we change a little bit, just enough to keep going. And then, well, we forget about this whole problem because it's gone, I'm good, okay? I'm all good, nothing wrong, perfect. I never forget, I had a conversation with Dr. Gary Gordon. And he said, Marcus, what's wrong with you? And I said, nothing, I'm fit as an ox. And he said, well, let's just go through. And as he kept asking, I thought, wow. I didn't know that I'm that sick, but he pointed out all the weaknesses. So I didn't see them, but he did, looking from the outside. And that's what I mean. We ignore those first warning signs. Then we have a second and third reminder. I had actually a second heart attack. I had already numb legs. I was already walking like an old dad. I couldn't walk up any stairs. I was exhausted and completely soaking wet. I never forget, I had an interview with the doctor, and it was in the third floor, and I was standing up there panting with my camera gear, and I was completely exhausted and completely soggy wet underneath my suit. Well, and I couldn't go ahead because I was done. Now that's the second and third and very unfriendly reminder that we talked about, and we ignore them. And then we get the big diagnosis. Now let's just say at that stage, there would be an easy play to transform and change, and I can see that on myself. That's actually where I got that big shock when that doctor turned around and said, I'm not working with you. You can do whatever you like, but I'm not working with you as long as you don't walk the talk. And that was my wake-up call that brought me. For some people, it's cancer. And it is the diagnosis that wakes them up and they start, wow, I need to do something. But that's where the problem comes. You see that little vortex? Well, that's the problem. The medical system today is set up in a way that they suck you into their funnel. They instantly grab you by your ears with the diagnosis, and you have to do surgery tomorrow. We book you in tomorrow morning, first thing you're on. It's day and life, it's life or death. Well, is it? That thing grew for 7 to 10 years, no matter where it is. So it's actually not really relevant that you do it overnight, but the trick on that whole concept is that they have to catch you before you start thinking, before you talk to someone, before you get some kind of Googling and then you find some alternatives, and they don't want that. So they book you in for the next day or the second day. And then surgery, first thing, very important, otherwise you're going to die. They know that surgery is not the solution, and that actually in a later stage already, that surgery has never prolonged the life of a patient. So that's not the solution, but that's the system. The first thing after surgery, well, we got it almost all, but we still need to do chemo to be certain, which means they guaranteed pull you into that funnel. It's a few $100,000 for the pharmaceuticals and for the clinic, so they can't let that go. And then if it's difficult, well, then we bombard you with radiation. Now that's where most patients go because they don't know anything else. They have no clue that there is alternatives. They didn't have time to think about it. And then we come to those, well, I call them quite shocking cases where they had up to 40, 50 chemo rounds, even though they didn't work. Well, that's milking the insurance and making the hospital rich. That's ignorance pure. But that's what lots of people do. And they go through and you wonder how healthy they must have been before that if they could endure this stress. And this is a big thing that just moves along and it's on automatic modus. And why is it on automatic modus? Because we don't know any better. We don't have the consciousness, the awareness and the awakened state to see that, oh, I have a problem, there is a different solution. If you ask most males today and you ask, well, what oil do you use for your car? Oh, only the best. I get this in this oil and it has this in this value and it's that good. They know everything that they do and what tires and what the safety, but they drink Diet Coke and Zero Coke and all shit into their body as if that would be invulnerable. Well, and if you tell them you need to change that, oh no, that won't harm me. It's ignorance that leads us to that state and that drags us into that funnel that actually kills us. And there is plenty of research studies that prove that if you take chemotherapy as a healthy patient, and there has been many misdiagnoses, and they gave chemotherapy to healthy patients, 3 years later they develop cancer. Well, which is, you know, the normal thing. If you poison the body and you kill the body's immune system, well, then cancer can develop. So, and the shock and the stress and everything on top of it, so that's not a solution. But that's where people are sucked in. And now when nothing works, and I love about those comments, I'm a 5-time cancer survivor. Rubbish, you never got rid of cancer. You just pushed it into all the other organs and you killed the rest of your body. So that's not a solution, and we know that. But that means you go through that whole funnel and then they say, get your affairs in order. We can't do anything anymore for you. Go home, you're ready and prepare to die. Well, that's when then most people, and I'm very, very sad to say that, say, oh, now I need to find alternative ways because they proclaim that they can cure cancer. And now we need to look for those, you know, miracle cures that actually help. When we did our last interview with our German doctors and we pushed that out to our list, I think we had 400 people applying to those alternative clinics in very last stage, after 30 rounds of chemo, after tumors were football size big. That's when they then want to start the alternative treatments. When I spoke with Charlotte Gerson, with Dr. Anderson, with Dr. Dowers, with Dr. Herzog, all of them said, patients come to us when conventional medicine sends them home to die. And that's a very sad point. Now, you know what happens then? And this is where I get angry and really frustrated. At that stage, when everything is destroyed, that's when they discuss, is Isiac tea better, or should I do a little bit of black salva, or should I do a little bit of alkalining and I take a bit of sodium bicarbonate? Well, these are band-aids. They are not a solution to a problem. They're actually just band-aids that healthy people and health-conscious people do to not get cancer in the first place. Now, if you would take this field here with a bit of juicing and everything, and you put that in between here, you know, shortly after the diagnosis, and you start with a healthy lifestyle, you start with detoxification, you start with cleaning up the toxins and the crap out of your life, well, then you have a huge chance Every single doctor in this world said to me, Marcus, if I get patients at that stage, just diagnosed, no other treatment yet, and they start to become conscious at that early stage, we send them home after 3 weeks. They go on a maintenance plan, which is really relaxed, and they transform their life. They can stop the cancer growth, and many of them can even reverse it. But if we have filled the body with poison beyond, we've killed every immune cell in our body, and then they come in a last stage, well, what should we do? What are we supposed to do? And that's where I completely agree. They can help you in a certain way to live painless, to increase the quality of life, and maybe even stop the cancer to grow. But to reverse the damage that has been done in conventional treatment, in reoccurrence, in 5 times cancer surviving mode, well, that's certainly not something that is easy to be repaired. So alternatives to the rescue is actually okay if you do it early. So I would move this in between here, right after the diagnosis. And that's when you hear those success stories that it helped me, it saved my life, it transformed my life. Yes, I actually healed. But, and this is the next step, only if we address the real problem. Now think of the causes of cancer. And in our book, we really put it together in 125 pages. Every single documented and well-proven cause of cancer. And it starts with cosmetics, it starts with diet, with our household cleaners, with EMF, with our environment. And if somebody says that's not proven, well then, okay. If you don't want to believe it, just keep going the old way. And well, you have to suffer the consequences. But if you start cleaning up that mess, all of a sudden you realize how your health increases, how your disease decreases by taking the stress away. And that's why all of those things need to be taken care of. And I would like to spend a little bit of time in that department, because that's where we had that beautiful conversation with Dr. Henning, where he said the relevance of treatments. Now, if you look at most of the patients in regards to toxins, I had a friend who invested, well, I still have him, but he invested, I would say, $1 million in treatments everywhere around the world, even in very well set up German clinics. They bombarded him with every possible treatment in the world. And then we did with Dr. Feldman a DNA test. And he checked for the ability to detoxify for my friend. And all detox channels were completely destroyed. No possibility to detoxify. Now, all of those treatments, no matter how well they work, kill cancer cells. Now, we know from Dr. Rao in Switzerland that every cancer cell has up to 40,000 times the concentration of heavy metals and arsenic and poison and all of those endocrine disruptor, neurotoxins and heavy metals, and that's released into the body. Now, if his detox pathways don't work and the clinic doesn't provide any detox methods, via chelation, via IV treatments, via all means with bathtubs and clay bath and sauna and sweating and hypothermia, well then all those toxins that have been released by killing the cancer poison the body again, and it's reabsorbed into the body. Now that's a serious issue. And if that's not resolved, then you can't get better. You just feel absolutely sick after treatment and nothing works. Now, inherited treatments, cancers, we don't really, he said himself, and every other doctor that I spoke to said that's not really relevant. It's what we inherit is our habits, is our thought pattern, is our lifestyle, is our ability to live a prosperous, happy and joyful life or not. Well, if we inherit crap and shitty relationships and stress and fear, well, then that's what will cause the cancer, not the genes. And then we go to stress, which is what we've been talking about at the EQ Academy. And you have no clue. They use in Kassel at the Arcadia Clinic a heart rate monitor. And it's a little clip that you put on. And then they test you while going through different breathing cycles and meditation cycles and rest cycles. And they check how your heart rate responds to stress. And would you believe that most patients say, I'm not having stress. No, I have no stress. And then you hook them up to the monitor and they peak at maximum. Well, that's the problem. And they don't even realize that. We got used to living in a stressful life from morning till night. And how many people today take the time to break free and do something musical, do something artistic, do something quiet? Just gardening is a meditation in itself. People don't have time for that anymore. They race through life and they have to live every day. Well, and they miss life completely. Now then we go to lifestyle, and well, we know that lifestyle without exercise, without breathing, without some joy in life and hobbies and interest and passion and fulfillment, well, nothing really works. And that's what you see. If you look at all those patients that are healed and look at them, do that research, look at those who get well. Are they the ones that complain about life, that moan through life and focus on their disease and concentrate how bad life is? Or are these the ones that turn their life around and actually move forward with a passion? Well, once you do that exercise, it becomes blinding obvious that there is none of them that is in that category of moaning and groaning. And then we go to diet. Well, one of the big problems, lots of controversy, lots of challenges. You need to find your own. And I'll introduce in a few days to you a stunning program, actually one that I did for myself. And it was very revealing and very beautiful to find all those things that make me sick. And I didn't know all the food allergies and all the imbalances in my body, but that program really points it out. And then you go into work stress, money stress, and purpose. Now, these are the things that need to be taken care of and need to be repaired in order to reduce the burden from your immune system and heal. And that's what we do at the EQ Academy. We focus on all of those areas and resolve the stress, resolve that tension. Learn how to break free from our dogmas on how we have to do things. You know, like a woman that came to me just recently, she said here and said, Marcus, I have to and I need to. And I said, why? That's how she learned it from her mother. That's how her husband expected it. She never thought that there was an alternative way of doing it. Now, as we explored the alternatives and we looked at different ways of getting the same outcome, but with a lot more relaxed for her, she was astounded. She tried it. She really tried careful steps, set certain things in place. And as soon as the stress vanished and she had more time for herself and she started to empower the family a little bit more, it was a huge turnaround. Now it's only our beliefs that we have to do certain things. And that's exactly what we work on at the EQ Academy. But you need to do it. And that brings me to the last chapter in this field. You know, like we have to make a decision. And this decision is actually really clear. And it doesn't matter at what stage you do it, you need to stick to it once you start. You can keep going on that middle path, you know, straight ahead where you've been going. Well, that's what we know insanity. You do the same thing over and over again, but expect a different outcome. It just does not work. So moving straight ahead and not changing anything will not get you anywhere. Then you turn to one side, and that's what we call making a mistake. Making something that doesn't work out. Like going into that funnel of chemotherapy, going into that funnel of medical treatments that kill your body. Well, I call that a mistake. But can we learn, can we evolve without making those mistakes? No. Nobody can. Our children would never find out that if we don't make all those mistakes and we learn that this is not leading to success, that they don't need to do that. Maybe it's too late for us to get that realization, but certainly in the long run, the more people realize that this is a dead-end road, it's just a money road, but it's certainly not a solution. Well, the more people realize that, the more people step away. And that's why we realize all of those alternative clinics in Germany and Switzerland and Denmark are booked out for months? Well, because people move away from this death vortex into a complete transformation and healing their life. So that's making a mistake. And I don't say this is wrong, but we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to learn that this doesn't work. And as soon as we do, and we realize, well, then we have one more alternative. We go the other way and we start learning. But we don't just do a little bit. And I guess this is where I want to come to a conclusion in this. It's not done with just a little bit trying here and keeping your life the same as it was. If you still smoke and you have lung cancer, if you still eat sugar and crappy food and fast food, if you have any kind of bowel cancer or any other cancer, well then you have missed the point. Cancer is not there as a punishment. It's actually a wake-up call for society, not only for you, for society, for your family, for everybody, to turn around and move into a different direction. And only by learning with pain, and we call that, the painful way of learning, we can evolve and grow forward. And if you are participating in that learning curve, well, turn left or right, whatever is the right way for you, and change your life and see how it improves. And not be stuck. Now, stuck in your ways, that's actually my last key point. And I would like to define that a little bit for you. There is unconscious. And I say that to probably 80% of our population. They follow the followers. They do what everybody else does and think, well, it's not going to hit me. It's diseases for other people. I just do what everybody else does. I eat all the crap food. I eat all the sweets. I dress with all the chemicals and all the synthetics and all of those things, and I don't care as long as I get what I want. Well, that's unconscious. Killing the environment, killing our planet, killing ourselves and our children. Completely unconscious. Then we move into look away, ignorance. Well, we know that that's not healthy, but yeah, that's not important for others. Would you believe that I just recently spoke to a guy who has a natural health food shop here, and I visited him at home, and he was spraying Roundup in the garden? And I said, what are you doing? And he said, look, it's only those few weeds and it won't harm anybody. I said, that's exactly it. That's what everybody thinks. Everybody's just, it won't harm, and I take care of it, and only a little bit. Well, if we don't start to vote with our shopping trolley and step away from all that crap and from all those toxins, well, we contribute to the killing of the planet and killing of our children in the same way as anybody else. And that's what I call look away ignorance. They know, but they still do it because it's convenient. Many people in that health industry, they still buy crappy food. You should meet them at the supermarket checkout, and then they try to hide their trolley because it's filled with crap. Well, if that's the path that you go, it's half conscious but still not acting upon it, that's the first stage of awakening. And then we go to fear of change. And that's actually where we can make a huge difference. If someone has fear of change, and that's where we work at the EQ Academy so intensely, that can be resolved with giving certainty. And how do you give certainty? Simply by showing common sense. You can convince anybody about anything by stacking up benefits and giving them an illusion, but there is still something very deep in our heart, and that's called common sense. It's emotional intelligence. We still realize the truth when we see it. And if you kindle that and you enlighten that and people realize, wow, this is actually true, and you stand to your truth, well, that will inspire everybody else. And this is where we take fear away, where we guide people into certainty and into direction and into a common sense path without that brainwash that media is doing. And then we have the other side, which are the stubborn ones, and you can't help them. And don't even try. If your husband is stubborn, if anybody's stubborn, the more you push, the more they have to push against you. Just leave them be. Really go and say, well, kill yourself, do whatever you like, but don't involve me into it. It's your choice. And the more you step away and you make them self-responsible, and they don't get the support that they, well, probably want by being that way, well, then they have to change. And that's something that is what we learn as well, because a lot of people at the EQ Academy have to do with a lot of resistance and stubborn people and people that have their agenda. Well, leave them be. Step back and say, well, be happy the way you are, but it's nothing to do with me. And through that, being soft at your end, there is no harm, there is no war, there is no anger, there is no frustration, but there is healing happening. All right? Now, I just had to share that with you, and you see I'm passionate about it. But I think this is an important part to realize. And if you look at that red arrow around, if you start dealing with the problem, and that's why I say we have problems to learn. Now, if we ignore the problem long enough and long enough and long enough until it grows beyond us, then we need an increased intensity of treatment, of solutions. But if we start early, if we awaken to that reality that a problem is not there to punish us, a problem is a signal to show us that something is wrong. And then we start healing and mending that which is wrong and not the signal. Well, then the problem can be decreased and resolved in no time. And that's what I want you to say. If you have a cancer, don't wait until your breast is the size of a baby. Not until you have a tumor everywhere spread in your body. Go early. Attack it with everything you've got at a very early stage, and through that, give yourself a chance to live.